I had just finished feeding the goats when I heard the low rumble. At first I thought it was thunder. Storm clouds had been threatening since morning. But when I looked down the winding gravel path that led to my 15-acre farm, I froze. 1. 2. No. 10 bulldozers. All yellow, all polished. All headed straight for my front gate. Behind them, in a spotless white SUV, sat her Karen McMillan, president of the newly formed Cedar Ridge Homeowners Association. I'd bought this land years before Cedar Ridge was even a thought in the city planner's office. It had been my retirement dream, a modest farmhouse, sustainable crops, some animals, peace. But now the suburb had expanded, new houses pushed up against my land's edge. And Karen and her HOA crew wanted control, starting with me. They hated the chickens, the smell of compost, the goats that occasionally wandered near there, pristine fences. But most of all, they hated not having authority over me. Karen stepped out of her car with a clipboard in hand, designer sunglasses masking her usual scowl.
Ow!
Per HOA Regulation 1-B, she barked. This unpermitted farm structure must be removed immediately. You're in violation of multiple ordinances. I stood there, still in my boots and flannel, trying not to laugh. She looked like a general commanding an army of construction vehicles. I'm not in your HOA, Karen, I said calmly. My land isn't part of your development. You can't enforce your rules here. She held up a thick manila folder. This is a formal notice. We've petitioned the county to rezone your parcel for residential integration. As of last week, you're subject to HOA expansion. Consider this an eviction of your illegal farm facilities. You petitioned who? Asked. Narrowing my eyes, Karen smirked, clearly enjoying herself. At the county zoning board. It's already in motion. Big mistake. You see, what Karen didn't know or failed to research is that I'm not just some reclusive farmer. Before retiring early, I spent 25 years in public service, most recently as land commissioner for the entire county. I wasn't. Just familiar with zoning codes, I'd written some of them. I let her finish her little speech, watching the bulldozer operators start their engines and lower their blades. One of them rolled toward my outer field. Stop right there, bellowed. To his credit, the driver did pause. Karen turned sharply. You're obstructing a lawful land development order, sir. I pulled out my wallet slowly. Inside, I still carried my county land commissioner, Emeritus ID. I held it up so everyone, especially the bulldozer crews, could see. Invoking immediate injunction under ordinance. 47-4A. Unauthorized heavy machinery on private agricultural property is a criminal offense. And unless you've somehow bribed the entire board, and I'll check, you have no right to rezone my land. Karen paled. That can't be also, I added, walking toward her with deliberate slowness. This land is protected under the state's Agricultural Preservation Act. No HOA can force annexation. Your petition? Invalid. The bulldozer engines began to quiet down, one by one. I turned toward the operator in the nearest vehicle. If any of you so much as scratch my fence, you'll be held liable for trespassing, property damage, and violation of county land use code. And if you don't leave in 10 minutes, I'll be calling in my team from the commissioner's office. Men in hard hats looked at each other nervously. Then, as if rehearsed, they slowly began reversing their bulldozers. Karen was fuming. You can't do this. I have lawyers. I have community support. I have signatures. You have signatures from people who live in homes that were illegally approved within 50 feet of an agricultural buffer zone. I could challenge your entire development tomorrow, and you'd be lucky to keep your cul-de-sac. You wouldn't. Darrow? I smiled. I absolutely would. Karen's lips twisted, as if searching for a new strategy. She flipped through her folder, probably realizing that none of the documents she brought had any legal standing. She'd assumed I was just a lonely farmer with no allies. But I wasn't alone. I had the law on my side. The original zoning maps. And friends, still inside the county offices, who would love to expose a rogue HOA overreach. You've made huge mistake today, Karen, I said, my voice cool now. Next time you want to play games with someone's livelihood, do your homework. You haven't seen the last of this, she muttered as she stormed back to her SUV. I chuckled, waving her off. Oh, I'm counting on it. As her motorcade of bulldozers turned around and rolled back down the gravel road, I turned and looked out over my fields. The goats had come back out to graze. The wind rustled through the corn stalks. Peace once again, but I knew it wouldn't last long, because Karen wasn't just going to accept defeat. She was going to come back harder, sneakier next time. And when she did, I'd be ready. Asterisk, it had been a quiet 2 weeks since Karen's bulldozer brigade retreated down my gravel road in embarrassment. I knew her silence wasn't surrender, it was plotting. And I was right. The first red flag came on a Tuesday morning as I was checking the irrigation pump. A black SUV pulled up, and 3 people stepped out, wearing county-issued badges. Zoning inspectors? Morning, the lead one said, flipping open his clipboard. We've received an anonymous complaint about potential code violations on this property. Anonymous? Sure. Care to share the details of these alleged violations? I asked, wiping my hands on a towel. Unregistered livestock, unsafe, outbuildings, unpermitted well installation, and possible illegal crop use. That last one almost made me laugh. Legal crop use? On an organic spinach patch? I raised an eyebrow. You do realize this is a preserved agricultural zone, right? All structures grandfathered, registered under a P13572, and the livestock, approved under 2018 exemptions. The inspector paused, clearly not expecting a farmer who could quote, "Ordinance codes by memory, you have documentation." I led them inside and dropped a 3-ring binder on the table, everything from my zoning maps, permits, soil reports, to water rights going back 30 years. The younger inspector's eyes widened. The lead flipped through a few pages and exhaled. You used to work in zoning, didn't you? Land commissioner, retired. I trained the guy who wrote your inspection protocol, gave a slow nod. Well, this is all in order. Looks like we'll be clearing the complaint. Good, I said. And do me a favor. When you file your report, include the fact that this complaint was baseless and malicious in intent. I have a feeling it won't be the last one. He gave a sympathetic smile. Will do. Sorry for the trouble. As they left, I spotted a familiar white SUV parked 2 houses down, peeking just behind a mailbox. I raised my coffee mug and waved. Karen ducked. 3 days later, things escalated. I woke up to find a bright red sign nailed to my front gate. Condemned unsafe structures. Cease operations immediately. This wasn't just an inspection. This was a full-blown fraudulent condemnation. I grabbed my phone and made 2 calls. First to the county office where my former assistant, now the acting commissioner, picked up. Second to Channel 7 News, who owed me a favor from a land preservation case I helped them cover years ago by noon. A county vehicle and a news van were parked in my driveway. Karen wasn't expecting cameras, as the county commissioner reviewed the fraudulent notice, complete with a forged signature and a bogus permit code. The reporter from Channel 7 was already rolling. What you're seeing, I told the camera, is a textbook case of HOA harassment. This is how local bullies try to seize land that doesn't belong to them. The reporter nodded gravely. And you believe the HOA president is responsible? I don't believe. I know. I held up the red notice and pointed to the bottom line. This permit code doesn't exist. The official who allegedly signed this retired 2 years ago. This is criminal forgery. The county commissioner, looking equally irritated, stepped in. We'll be launching an immediate investigation. And let me be very clear. No such condemnation order came from our office. Later that evening, the story aired. Footage of my goats grazing me, flipping through zoning maps, and a blurred-out shot of Karen's house with the caption, "Local HOA accused of land sabotage." The backlash was immediate. Emails flooded the HOA board. Homeowners who once tolerated Karen's antics started speaking up loudly. One neighbor even posted a photo of Karen peeking through binoculars from her upstairs window with the caption, "HOA or Homeland Security?" A week later, I was invited to speak at a public county zoning hearing, where Karen had filed a formal appeal to incorporate my land into the HOA jurisdiction. I accepted. The hearing room was packed. Reporters, residents, fellow farmers, and more than a few curious HOA members filled the benches. Karen showed up in a beige pantsuit, armed with a briefcase and smugness. She made her case first. Claimed my farm was disruptive to the community aesthetic, lowered property values, and was functioning outside modern zoning harmony. When it was my turn, I brought my usual binder, but I also brought photos. Photos of Karen trespassing. Photos of forged notices. Screenshots of emails she'd mistakenly to a mutual contact. And then came the final blow. I pulled out a signed affidavit from one of the Bulldozer operators who admitted Karen had hired them under the lie that the county had approved the demolition. Ladies and gentlemen, I concluded, this is not a zoning debate. This is a personal vendetta, weaponized through bureaucracy, and it stops today. The board ruled unanimously against Karen. Her appeal was denied.
On my land.
Was reaffirmed.